Don't you just hate it when commissioners or presidents of leagues just refuse to let things go, refuse to, you know, allow relocation for a franchise and all that, or preventing a relocation? I mean, when you got the MLB, you got Bud Selig, who basically could have done a lot more for the city of Montreal and helped the Expos keep the team instead of letting it float through Jeffrey Loria and him selling it off to Major League Baseball just so he could get a piece of the Marlins. And of course, Montreal ending up in Washington and all that. I don't think that Adam Silver or David Stern did anything stupid for relocation and all that. So they're forgiven. Football, what about like, you know, that damn commissioner, Roger Goodell, and trying to ruin relocation? Actually, he hasn't really done much. But the one sport, obviously, this is a hockey one. The one sport I have to talk about is a guy who refuses, who had refused for years to let hockey in Arizona die and maybe go to Quebec City, maybe go to Hamilton, maybe the Saskatchewan. I don't know. Hell, even in the States, you could put a team in Kansas City or even Portland, Oregon, or even Boise, Idaho, whatever. He just refused to let hockey die in the desert. But but beyond all that, what Gary Bettman has done for the Coyotes franchise before it's now in Utah, the fact of the matter is that the Coyotes did have a glimmer of hope for hockey in the Southwest. This is the story of the 2011-12 Coyotes. Hello out there, we're on the air. It's Cutter with NHL time. Tensions blow, the whistle blown, and the pucks go down the ice. Some teams just want to win the cup and do it with a smile. Hey, that is cool. Up on the River Nile. Oh, the good old hockey game. Who will come out on top? Will a team get through the cup to the cup by any means necessary? Oh, the good old hockey game. It's the best game you can name. And I'm have no shame. I will simulate those hockey games. Woo! So the Phoenix Coyotes got life as the Winnipeg Jets. Now, of course, there's two Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg Jets 1.0 was the team that moved to Phoenix, and the Winnipeg 2.0 is the team that they are playing right now. Now, I have a what if about Winnipeg Jets 1.0 from 1990. That is not done yet. So basically, I'm just going to give the Cliffs Notes about Winnipeg moving to Phoenix. Now, the Jets franchise was supposed to move to Minnesota after the 94-95 season, but thankfully, Winnipeg saved their franchise for one more year. Unfortunately, though, the inevitable happened and they would be moving. Not to Minnesota, who lost the NHL 3 years prior thanks to Norm fucking Green, but to the fact that it would be in Phoenix. People were shocked, like, Phoenix? Sure, they had a good International Hockey League team, like a minor league team, but an NHL team? Are they really for the NHL in the Southwest when freaking Phoenix gets like 40-degree days in the summer? That's Celsius, of course. So the fact of the matter is, why Phoenix? Well, you can chalk it up to Gary Bettman trying so hard to let hockey live in southwestern United States. Of course, the whole Wayne Gretzky trade from Edmonton, LA, kind of started the tradition of the Sun Belt getting teams. You had teams in California. Well, San Diego would be farther down towards the Mexican border, but they haven't had an NHL team. You got Arizona with the Jets. You have Dallas picking up the Minnesota North Stars. Houston almost taking Edmonton and all that. You have Nashville having an expansion team. You have Atlanta having an expansion team. You have the state of Florida picking up two expansion teams. So yeah, Bettman wouldn't let the dream die. So anyway, the Coyotes franchise came from the Jets, and lo and behold, in their first season as the Phoenix Coyotes, they went to the playoffs. They had a game 7 against the Anaheim Mighty Ducks, as they were called at the time. But fortunately for purists, The Ducks won that game. The Coyotes would wallow. They did have the old Winnipeg Jets players like Tverdovsky, Kachuk, and Shane Doan. The Coyotes in the 99 playoffs actually had a 3-1 series lead on the St. Louis Blues and looked good with Nikolai Khabibulin between the pipes. Unfortunately for the Coyotes, they blew it. And in Game 7, Ricard Persson, who at one time was credited with the Game 7 goal for the Blues against the Coyotes when Fuhr and Khabibulin went toe-to-toe. It was actually Pierre Turgeon with the tip. But anyway, the Blues took out the Coyotes and their famous whiteout. The Coyotes, did they really need the whiteout? I mean, Winnipeg had it. I mean, they wanted to keep it in Phoenix. Sure, whatever. But the Coyotes were struggling. Khabibulin had a contract dispute. He was out for a year, then got traded to Tampa, and then ended up winning the Cup with the Lightning in 04 to Calgary's chagrin. The Coyotes were struggling. They couldn't win a playoff series to save their lives. They kept making the playoffs, sure, but they kept getting bounced from the playoffs and all that. So that was hard to press. But yeah, the Coyotes had some issues. Of course, staying in Arizona is one thing. They just couldn't get an owner to keep things going. They went from Phoenix to Glendale to freaking Arizona State's hockey arena. Like a 5,000 seat arena? Jeez. That's how low the Coyotes have gone. Fortunately, though, there was a happy ending to people not from the Southwest. The state of Utah wanted a hockey team, and lo and behold, the Utah Hockey Club was born. It's almost almost certain it's going to be the Utah Mammoth for the 2025-26 season. That's what everyone says because the YouTube handle says so. But the fact of the matter is that the Coyotes finally got out of Phoenix, out of a bad situation. I mean, the state didn't even want them in a sense. And BETTMAN could have easily allowed the Coyotes to sell off to another team within the United States. It doesn't even have to be Canada. I know he has a hard on for fucking over Canada and all that. I know Winnipeg got in as thanks to the Thrashers sucking. But the fact of the matter is, BETTMAN will not allow an eighth team in Canada. That's how I feel about him. So anyhow, yeah, BETTMAN just couldn't let it die with the Coyotes. But anyway, let's talk about the one of the most successful seasons in Coyotes history when they were in Phoenix, 2012. Anyhow, so the 2012 Coyotes was the 33rd franchise team history because the Winnipeg Jets and all that. I will get more into the Winnipeg Jets 1.0 when I talk about the 1990 Jets. But anyhow, it was their 40th overall because of the WHA and 16th in Phoenix. On May 10th, 2011, the Glendale City Council voted 5-2 to keep the Coyotes in Arizona on an interim basis while trying to find a new owner to keep the team in Glendale. Before this vote, there was rumors that the Coyotes would head back to Winnipeg, and Winnipeg would be getting their franchise back. Unfortunately, though, that failed. Fortunately for Winnipeg, they did get the Thrashers. Ilya Bryzgalov was traded to Philadelphia because they figured that Bryzgalov was going to be nowhere near in Phoenix. They did win the Pacific Division, their first and only division team as title as an NHL team. Neither the Winnipeg Jets in the old days or the Coyotes in the new days. Anyway, as Pacific champs, the Coyotes were the 3 seed. As you see there, well, the Canucks won the Northwest and the Blues won the Central. The Coyotes won the Pacific, and the rule at the time was the 3 division winners had to be 1, 2, 3. If that did not happen, then the Coyotes would have slid all the way to 6 and faced the Nashville Predators, who would have been number 3. Detroit would have been 4. Chicago would have been 5. We would have seen a Detroit-Chicago matchup 1 year prior to an original one. Phoenix would have faced Nashville. San Jose would have still played St. Louis, and LA would still have played Vancouver. It's kind of weird that the Coyotes would have been 6th. They narrowly got past the San Jose Sharks in the Pacific and the LA Kings, who both had some great players, especially one, Johnny Quick. They faced the Chicago Blackhawks in the first round and actually won a playoff round for the first time in the desert and the first time as a franchise since 1987, 2 years after my birth. Of course, the Jets Coyotes only had two playoff series wins prior to 2012, both against Calgary, 1985 and 1987. The Coyotes would face the Nashville Predators and beat them in 5 games to advance to the conference final. Unfortunately, though, the LA Kings, who were the 8th seed of all things, and you know, they got in heavily over Calgary. Like Los Angeles came out of freaking nowhere as the 8th seed, took out the Vancouver Canucks, took out, I think, San Jose, if I'm not mistaken. And then they ended up taking out the Coyotes in 5 games. It was the first time that the Coyotes, and the only time they actually passed this round of 16, won 2 playoff series, and reached the conference finals before suspending operations. We don't really want to talk about that. So, anyway, the playoffs happened and all that. And in one of the most iconic playoff series of all time, the Coyotes played the Blackhawks and won the series 4 games to 2. But that wasn't the big thing. The big thing is look at the first 5 games and look at that OT thing. OT, 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 OT. The first 5 games were decided in overtime, which actually tied an NHL record for most consecutive overtime games in a series with the 1951 Stanley Cup Finals between the Habs and the Leafs. And it was only the third time overall or second time. And it was the second time in NHL history that a series had 5 overtimes in a best of 7. And let's not forget that games 3 and 4 were won by one specific Phoenix Coyote. And I remember watching the TSN feed of game 3, and Chris Cuthbert said after Michael Bucker scored, the Great Dane scored, it's like, it's a goal from the former Kitchener Ranger. And yes, Kitchener Ranger, civic pride, people, take it. Nevertheless, they had a playoff run for the ages. It was the only time the Coyotes won a playoff series while in Phoenix. Mike Smith, 9-7 in the playoffs. Okay, fair. With 3 shutouts. Swift was the main goalie after Briskalov left. Shane Doan got 300th career goal. Ray Whitney got a 600th career assist. Shane Doan got his first hat trick in 2012. Ray Whitney played in his 1200th career NHL game. Dave Tippett won his 400th career win as head coach. Derek Morris hit 1,000 career NHL games, and Ray Whitney hit his 1,000th point as a member of the Coyotes March 2012. Phoenix traded Oscar Lindbergh to New York for Evan Warwick. They traded Ilya Briskalov to Philly for Matt Claxon for the negotiating rights because Briskalov was a free agent. They made a big trade, trading Lee Stempniak to Calgary for Damien Lakehow. Kyle Turris was traded from Phoenix to Ottawa for David Rundblad. That actually was a terrible move because Turris would become a decent player. And the Coyotes at the trade deadline would pick up Antoine Vermette from Columbus, which actually worked out for them. Free agents lost and lost Dromanowski to Florida for a 4-year deal. Back to Florida where he belongs, I guess. They did pick up Mike Smith, goalie from Tampa, because they lost Briskalov. Rafi Torres from Vancouver went to Phoenix. Curtis McElhaney from Ottawa. Justin Pogge from Carolina. Patrick O'Sullivan from Minnesota. Nevertheless, they did their jobs. They drafted Connor Murphy, 20th overall, which I don't think really worked out that well. So anyway, what would happen if the 2012 Coyotes actually did pull off the miracle over the LA Kings and won the conference finals to face the Devils? Let's find out. So it's the 2012 Coyotes and the 2012 Devils. The Devils had more points, so that's why they practically are the home team. Just like in real life, the Devils would host the first 2 games, then the Coyotes get games 3 and 4, and then 5, 6, 7 alternating. So this is the starting lineups and all that. The starting goalies. Game 1 sees the Devils win in overtime. Coyotes scored a pair of goals. Shane Doan and Rafi Torres put it in. Devils with David Clarkson, Kitchener, and Adam Henrique. Shane Doan made it 3-2 for the Coyotes. Sikora made it 3-3. Clarkson, Kitchener again, his second goal of the game. Radom Verbata made it 4-4. Ray Whitney made it 5-4. The Coyotes looked like they were going to win the game, but Zach Parise scored with under a minute left. And then Ryan Carter at 15-19 of overtime won the game. Every Coyote who played 18 minutes. Every Devil who played 17 minutes. 3 stars, Zach Parise, Pierre Sikora, and Adam Henrique. It's weird how no Coyotes got to be stars. I don't know why. Game 2 sees the Coyotes come back to win 3-1 as Patrick Elias made it 1-0 for the Devils. And for 2 periods, it looked like they were going to win. But for Bada, Lankal, and Korpikoski were the heroes. And the series goes to Game 5 at the very least. Yeah, Eric Bolton, Curtis Foster, Cam Jansen, and Matt Turner didn't play much. Phoenix didn't have room for David Schlemmer or Chris Summers. 3 stars, Mike Smith, the goalie, Martin Brodeur, and Radom Verbata. So back to Phoenix for Game 3. And Phoenix will win 4-2. Henrique scored to make it 1-0, and then Lankal made it 1-1. Shane Doan made it 2-1 Coyotes. Then Taylor Pyatt made it 3-1. Henrique made it 3-2, and then Kyle Turris with less than 5 minutes made it 4-2. See the guys. Chip Chura playing 2 seconds. 2 seconds. Yandel, Henrique, and Mike Smith are your 3 stars. Game 4 sees the Coyotes lose to the Devils 5-3. So now it's a best of 3, if you will. The Devils were up 5-0. Kovacic, Parise, Henrique, Parise, and Subres scoring. Yandel for bottom for Matt for the Coyotes, but nothing else. Parise, Kovacic, and Brodeur were your 3 stars of the game. So 2-2 headed back to New Jersey for Game 5. And it would be the Devils again in overtime. Elias scored for the Devils in the first, Shane in the second. Kovacic made a 2-1 in the third for power play, and then Oliver Ekman-Larsson with under 2 minutes left scored. But in overtime, Diana Subres scores Clarkson with the assist, and the Devils again win 3-2 in overtime. Brodeur, Ekman-Larsson, and Doan are your 3 stars. Kyle Turris would suffer an injury, so that means the Coyotes have to figure something out. And Lankal comes into play center for Game 6. And Game 6 would see an overtime win for the Coyotes. That's forcing a Game 7. So the Coyotes didn't give up. Verbata scored. It was 3-0 Coyotes. Verbata, and Ray Whitney. It looked good. Devils, Nick Palmieri scored. Then Peter Sikora and David Clarkson tied it. Despite Keith Yandel being penalized for 2 minutes, they killed it off, and the Coyotes get a goal from Matt to Shane Doan, and it made it 4-3 Coyotes to win the game. Verbata, Whitney, and Lankal are 3 stars. So we go to Game 7 in New Jersey. Who will it be? It will be the Devils. Ooh, it will be the Devils. Ooh, 4-2 as the Coyotes forced a Game 7 but lost. And worst of all, the Coyotes had a double minor by Ruslav Klesla for charging. Fortunately, he was not ejected. I don't think he was ejected, right? No, he wasn't ejected. Kovacic scored on the power play, but that was only 1 goal. Sikora made it 1-0. Then David Clarkson made it 3-0. Lankal made it 3-1. Rafi Torres made it 3-2. It looked good, but then Clarkson, Kitchener, with the empty net goal to make it 4-2, and the Devils take down the Coyotes and would have won the Stanley Cup in 7 games. You gotta feel bad for Phoenix. Kovacic, Clarkson, and Lankal, your 3 stars, but the Devils would have sunk the Coyotes in 7 games. It would have been a classic. That Phoenix at least made things interesting. We have splits in the first 2, middle 2, and then the next 2. So it was just basically split down the pike poop. Game 7, what can you do? Anyway, feel bad for the Coyotes. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.